right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to our clerks for the day. It is Take Your Kids to Work Day, and we have my daughters Addison and Ava, and in London, who's the daughter of my Chief of Staff, Michelle. They thank you for helping us. You carried your weight today. This is the Education and Culture Committee, and we have several items to review as part of our ongoing review of the operating budget. And we'll start with the Montgomery County Public Libraries, and then the Takoma Park Library, NDA, our friends at Kid Museum, the Arts and Humanities Council, and the Community Use for Public Facilities. So it's Thursday, April 25th, joined by my colleagues, Councilmembers Albornoz and Mink, and we're looking forward to getting into the discussion. So with that, I'll turn to, we're doing libraries first. You all are in place. Thank you very much. I'll see if Director Vassallo has anything she wants to say at the beginning, and then I'll turn to staff to start us off.
Thank you, Councilmember Jawando. I'm Anita Vassallo, the Director of Montgomery County Public Libraries, and we appreciate the opportunity to go before the E&C Committee to look at our operating budget for fiscal year 25. I think that as you have seen over the course of the past year, Libraries has made good use of the funds allocated to us. We have done a lot of hiring, which I know is of great concern to Council, and our requests for this year in terms of enhancements to our budget are solely focused on the support of the community that we serve.
Thank you so much, Director Vassallo, and I can attest to your department's commitment to that. I want to turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Mink, who is the lead for libraries.
Thank you. And first I want to congratulate our Director Vassallo, on your fast approaching retirement. I know that you have stayed with 2 feet in the game this entire time, and that you will continue to do so for every day that we have you. But congratulations. We appreciate everything that you have done to expand the services of the library on behalf of the county and our full wide community. And second, I just wanted to preview a dynamic that our analyst, Mr. Anbinder, will go through in a moment, and that is we are currently spending significantly less on our library collection budget as a county than we did 20 years ago in real dollars. The collections budget represents our ability to purchase and maintain high quality books and digital resources that our residents use and take home every day from our libraries, and currently it's not keeping up with our diverse and growing population. We have lots of competing needs across the county, but this is one that Montgomery County, for very good reason, has said and shown that we value greatly. We have leaned on our libraries for a lot, and especially in these most recent years, and making sure that our collections budget keeps up with that is an important piece of this puzzle. So with that, I will turn it over back to the chair, and look forward to getting into the details.
Thank you, Library Lead Mink. I think that's a really good point. 2 points. Also, I know we'll honor you appropriately at the appropriate time, but it's been a pleasure, since this will be your last budget before this committee. I think that warrants a little bit of a reflection, and your many decades, even though you don't look like you served many decades in service of this county, starting first as a librarian, right? Or even before that. No, yeah, before that you were at the county. Well, give me the quick history again.
Yeah, if you want a quick history. So I started working for the library system when I was about 15 years old as library page.
Page, that's right.
Took my my merit position as a library clerk in 1974. Actually, yesterday was my 50-year anniversary of work with Montgomery County Public Libraries, and I've done most every single job that there is to do for the library system, and have the great honor to wind up my career as the director of this great department of county government.
Wow. Well, that is a testament in this library. Yes, that deserves a round of applause. Thank you for your service and continued service. It's been great. It's been great to work with you as the former lead for libraries and as the chair of this committee and a member of this committee. And to the collections point, I know we'll get to this, but my daughter, Addison in particular, all my kids love to read, but she's the avid reader. I'm always worried about losing a library book somewhere in the house. And my apologies. I'm sure there's some out now, but I told her we were going over the library's budget. She said, well, we need more books and more selection. And there was unprompted, and I said, well, I will pass that on. And Councilmember Mink did it for me. So turn it over to council staff to lead us through the packet.
Good afternoon. For the FY25 operating budget for Montgomery County Public Libraries, MCPL, the county executive recommends a total of $53,332,301, which is an increase of $3.647 million, or 7.34% from the FY24 approved operating budget. As the committee will see on page 2 of your packet at the top, there are 3 programs in the executive's recommended operating budget, which, if the committee supports, would be placed on the new and enhanced programs list. And I'll go through those in just a moment, preceded by a little bit additional background on the collections overall. And I'll mention as well that as a 4th item for committee consideration, attached to this packet as well is the county executive's recommendation for an amendment to the FY25 to 30 CIP that reflects an addition of $957,000 in state aid to the library refurbishment level of effort project. So continuing on page 2, but jumping down to the bottom just to give a little additional background on the collection management department overall. Collection management consists of 27 FTEs, 100% of which were filled as of April 22nd, and the total collections budget was $7.519 million in fiscal year 24. You'll see from the tables on page 3, and I apologize for misnumbering these tables. Table 3 is before Table 2. Total library collection use has increased dramatically since FY21 and is estimated to increase further in FY24. This is a total print plus digital item cataloging listing. And then on the table that is labeled Table 2, the expenditures, share of collections expenditures that are designated for electronic purchases versus print purchases, the committee will see that beginning in FY20, there was a dramatic shift in the share of overall collection expenditures that were used on digital purchases or electronic purchases versus print. So going from about 74% print and 26% electronic in FY19 to concurrent with the pandemic, about 38% in print and 62% electronic in FY20, and that share of expenditures on electronic items has continued to increase, although not as dramatically as it did in that single year. As Councilmember Mink mentioned, and as is reflected by the graphs on the bottom of page 3 and the top of page 4 of your packet, the budget in nominal dollars has increased significantly since 2011, but funding levels have led to a net decrease in funding in inflation-adjusted dollars over the same time period, and especially over FY17 through FY22. MCPL's collection budget as of FY21 was in collection budget funding per capita was in the bottom half of the 10 jurisdictions in Central Maryland. Which brings us to the first item for the committee's consideration, the enhanced funding for digital collections. This is the county executive's recommendation of $315,240 to increase funding for the digital collection. This would represent a 4.2% increase to the library system's overall collections budget. It would reduce wait times for materials and fund digital offerings on multiple digital platforms, which would provide digital access to books, audiobooks, videos, and music. So council staff does recommend this item be placed on the new and enhanced programs list, and happy to answer any questions on that before we move on.
Thank you. I'll turn to our lead for libraries and my colleague, Councilmember Albornoz, if he has any comments. So I'll just say that chart is amazing. When I read the packet yesterday or the day before, just to see how quickly that switched from digital to print and how it's continued to grow. And I really appreciate the work that was done in the packet, just outlining where we are vis-a-vis our partner library institutions. And I'll just point out, we did put expansion of, well, I know we'll get to that in a moment, but we put expansion, for example, of world languages on the list last year and didn't make it. And so we'll talk about that, but I think it just shows the demand is there, and I would certainly agree with putting this on and work really hard to get it off. Turn to Councilmember Mink.
I agree. I think that this is really a must. We need to keep up with where the world is at, where the community is at, and that's reflected in these numbers and the ability of the library to make those shifts, the agility there. I am confident that they will make good use of these funds, and so I think that it's important for our library system for us to stand behind it by ensuring that we can, again, keep up with modern times and what our community is showing they need and want.
Okay, so I think without objection, we will put that on the enhanced programs list.
Great. Moving on to the next item, still on page 4 of your packet. This is the county executive's recommendation of $360,000 to expand the world languages collection. This funding would represent, independently of the funding in the previous item, a 4.8% increase in the collections budget relative to FY24. Currently, the World Language Collection represents roughly 68,000 items, which is less than 4% of the total number of physical materials in the library system, and that's contrasted with roughly 16% of county residents over 5 years old, who, according to a recent census survey, speak English less than very well. And of that 4% of titles that are in the World Languages Collection, 28% are due for updating or replacement in accordance with MCPL's policies. The council staff has identified a number of options for the committee's consideration regarding this item at the bottom of page 4 and top of page 5 of your packet. The first option would be to place the full recommended $360,000 on the new and enhanced programs list. The second option would be to place 2 tranches of $180,000 each on the new and enhanced programs list to provide the council ultimately with greater flexibility in its final budget decisions. And then the third possibility would be to place the full recommended $360,000 on the new and enhanced programs list, but designate it as a one-time expenditure as opposed to an ongoing expenditure, which could allow libraries to infuse new materials into this collection, but of course would not provide for the ongoing refurbishment and the ongoing collection of new materials.
And before we take that up, I meant to ask this on the last point. There's always a little variability in the budget process and how things are put on the list. And this year, we talked about this the other day, there is a new and enhanced, what you believe to be new and enhanced. There's always a little bit of gray area. And I want to, on the collections, which we just approved to put on the list, the digital materials, I wouldn't want you to speak to what this is. If it's to expand and get more access to more digital materials, that would be new and enhanced. The question is keeping and maintaining what we have, current level of service, that would not be new and enhanced. And so I want to make sure that we're defining this and what this money would do the correct way, because I've been in other committees where to keep the same level of service is not seen as a new and enhanced. And so would the budget that you've been, the budget minus this 315, would you be able to maintain service as is, or is part of this money going to maintaining service as is?
Hi everyone, James Donaldson, Assistant Director, Montgomery County Public Libraries. And so this number is based off of the projection for our Hoopla service, which is extremely popular and increases in popularity. And as it increases in popularity, it increases in cost. And so to your point, Councilmember Jawando, this would be essentially to continue offering that robust digital platform to the public. And so...
Yeah, this is just to meet demand for it.
Correct.
See, that to me is not new and enhanced. You know, I'm on the Planning, Housing, Parks Committee. We restored, there's another category that's been being used, restoration, right? And it's a little different because the county executive had a different approach to that budget. But I say that to say, I think for the context of this, we probably need to keep it on. But if you were to tell me this is to get 100,000 new books and new titles, and you're saying this is just to meet demand of people coming to the service, right? To me, that's the same as we need to take care of the wear and tear, or like if someone's visiting a park and what we expect that to be. What are you basing the demand on, though? You know, how are you basing, how did you get to the number based on what you expect to see as increased use for service. This is to reduce wait times, right? So right now you have people trying to access materials. Is that not what this is, and they have to wait for a long time? And this is to lower
It's
that?
not. And so for the Hoopla platform is distinct from Overdrive in that way. And so with Hoopla, there is no wait time, there's no wait lists, and this is part of why it's continuing
So you
to
can
grow in
just access it,
popularity.
yeah.
If the material is there, you can check it out and use it immediately. And so we've looked at that service year over year since adding it several years ago, and we have analytics on how the performance was, all the usage, and the total cost to the department. And so looking at that growth rate year over year, we can project what it's going to cost us next year and what the usage will be. And that's where we derive the number that's here in the package.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think even separate from the next item, which is an expansion of materials, that's different than I think this, which is just keeping up with people wanting to use the service. I want to hear from my colleagues, but for me, this seems like this is just part. If people come to the library, and then this is the way they come now, we saw through the data, they come digitally. They should be able to access. What happens if you come? Then the last question I have, and I'll turn to colleagues for their input. What can you not do now? So if these people come and want to use Hoopla, do we only have a certain number of logins, and so it just reaches a max, or what is not happening if you don't get the funding?
So there is a certain number of checkouts that each user is limited to, which is currently set at 10. That's something that we set, 10 per month. That can be adjusted up or down, but it is a way of controlling that.
Sure.
But that being said, with Hoopla being structured how it is in terms of the business model, if demand is there and it's being used, we have to pay for that. And so what would happen in real life if we get significantly more usage than anticipated would be that we'd either have to reduce the service itself or
come for more
take
money.
funds that we would have used for some other portion of the collection to then fulfill the obligation to Hoopla.
So there's no restriction. You could self-limit if you're saying, oh, there's too many people using it, which is obviously us saying taking service away from people who want to go to the library, which is what this is. This is going to the library. Or you have to shift fund from somewhere else mid-year or come for more money, supplement or something like that. Okay. Does OMB have a view on this?
I think the reason, Deborah Lambert from the Office of Management and Budget, the reason why when this review item was placed into our budget for CE recommended, we look at how many services are being provided. And because of the increased demand, OMB's view on this is that there's more services being provided because of the increase in demand. So that's why it went into the CE recommended budget as enhance.
Do you have any comments on this? Councilmember Albornoz?
Yeah, I appreciate the chair's point. And as I said at our last session, we're struggling with this in HHS too, this notion of what's new versus what's a continuation of programs that were started during COVID and to meet the demand that we're currently seeing right now. We all love libraries. Our community loves libraries. And whenever we do a constituent survey on what county resources and programs and services do people are most proud of, do they enjoy, do they utilize, libraries is always among the top organizations and departments. And so I don't know, I think we just have to put an asterisk and ensure that our colleagues, when this gets to full council, understand this very important and salient point, as we have to go through as many of the line items as we can, but let's make sure that we highlight this one because I do think it does reflect what we're seeing on the ground.
Nothing to add? Okay. All right, so council, I think at a minimum, and I see we have our deputy director here too, and I'm glad he's here hearing this conversation, Mr. Howard. I think this is a little different than new, and it's certainly enhanced, but this is what people are coming to the library for. Our libraries are free and open and available to everybody. So either we will have to restrict service to some, or shift money in. And so to me, it seems a little different. But let's leave it on the list for now and try to follow the guidance. But if we can note in some way through an asterisk or that this is not to, this is to meet the current demand at the library. for people who want to check out books or use Hoopla services, excuse me.
Just to mention, this service provides not only books, but it's also streaming movies,
Right.
music, magazines, graphic novels. It's a whole package of collection, and as a matter of fact, you can go and listen to Taylor Swift's new album tomorrow on that if you
All
want
set
to.
of media services in
Yes.
multimedia. So, okay. I felt like it was important to do that because I do feel like everything's not being treated exactly the same in the way we're approaching this. So let's go to the expansion of world languages.
Sure. Thank you. So the options for the committee's consideration regarding the expansion, as recommended by council staff, would be option 1, placing the full $360,000 recommendation on the new and
You already
enhanced.
did this, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm going to turn to you. Go ahead and restate it because we shifted gears, and then I'll go to Councilmember Mink, who I think had a comment.
So option 1 would be the full recommended $360,000 on the new and enhanced programs list. Option 2 would be dividing that $360,000 into 2 tranches of $180,000 each. And option 3 would be placing the full $360,000 on the list, but designating it as a one-time as opposed to ongoing expenditure.
Thank you, Mr. Anbinder. Councilmember Mink.
I'm going to turn it to Director Vassallo in a moment, but I'll just note that this item was before us last year, and as stated, we didn't get the funding for this. And I think that the mistake that was made is that this was treated as a nice to have instead of a must have, and this is a must have. If we are true to our word here in Montgomery County, that we are excited about and welcoming our diverse community, like this is who our community is. We cannot fund a budget for a library that doesn't serve significant portions of our community. It's not right. So I think we need to make clear that this is also a must-have. We are keeping up with who our community is and the values that we have here in Montgomery County. And when we think about constituents who are going into the libraries and looking for books for their children, for themselves, and what they have are very, very old and very limited selections, or they have hold on, we're going to need to look in Howard County to bring over some materials. That's really an embarrassment, and that's not who we want to be here in Montgomery County. So I think that this is a really important budget line. I think we're playing catch up from last year, and I understand that MCPL's request on this item was somewhere around twice what the county executive sent over. So I think we need to take that into consideration as well. I don't think that my understanding is that if we further split it again and pass back potentially a fourth of what was originally requested, that really there's very little at this point, with money like that MCPL could use to fulfill the service that we're talking about here. I would actually, my preference would be to say that with a little goes a long way, frankly, relatively little, but inside of our, looking at our county budget here, a little goes a long way in this space when we were talking about service to our population. We know that these are materials that will be used, and we know that we are sending people away now and bringing books in, again, from other jurisdictions. So my preference would actually be to bump this up a little bit, or to offer it at least up for discussion at the council, that if we added only 100,000 on here, then we could actually do the library could turn that into a fairly significant expansion in terms of being able to have enough of an offering in some additional languages that we're not turning people away in the manner that we currently are now. But I want to turn it over to Director Vassallo to speak to this.
So that's very well said, Councilmember Mink. I would like to point out that what we're really trying to do here is reconstitute a collection. The world language collections have not been addressed in the way that we would have wished to due to budgetary constraints over the past several years. These materials are sometimes more expensive than what we can purchase in English language. The vendors are difficult for us to find. We can't purchase from overseas. So the funding, and we did ask for $720,000 originally, really is what we need in order to be able to support something that people can come into the library and know that they are, they're going to be able to get new materials that reflect either current authors or current topics of interest to that community. So I'll see if my collection management manager, Felicity Brown, would like to speak a little bit more about this, since she's doing the work every day.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So what we're currently working right now on, we've had a large focus on expanding our Spanish collections, and we continue to look for more ways we can do that as well. This funding at the $360,000 level would allow us to fully redevelop all of our Spanish collections and to redevelop our Chinese collection as well. Those being the two priority languages, as most spoken in the county. Were we to get an additional $100,000, we would be able to start to reconstitute our Korean, our Chinese, and our French collections on top of that at the same rate we've been working on our Chinese in the past. So we've seen the impact of bringing these collections in, and the circulation on these items has been high even when they've been out of date. But we really are underserving these populations. We do need to have new materials that is equal to what we're providing in the rest of our collection. Our collection development policy, we focus on purchasing materials that were published in the last 5 years. We continue to circulate those items until they are no longer used or they are falling apart. In this case, we just really want to be providing new, up-to-date materials for all of our populations. Thank you.
I just wanted to one additional follow-up question. If there's a question before us also about one-time versus ongoing. So if either of you could speak to that.
So one time would be great as a start. It would allow us to buy new materials, but it would not let us redevelop the entire collections. So we'd be able to get some new stuff this year, but then next year, what do we do? And there will be other things aging out of the collection by the following year, and this is how we got here in the first place. So our preference would be for ongoing funding so that we can continue to update and keep these collections current.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. And as you know, when we look at the collections budget, that is an ongoing expense for good reason. And why would we make our English language collections budget ongoing and not our world languages collection?
Appreciate it, Councilman Mink. I agree with you. I think adding the 360 as one tranche so that it can be built back up. I think there's, without objection, unanimous agreement on that. I don't know if there'd be unanimous agreement on the other one, but I just tend to think it's one of the reasons I brought up the last point, because if we could take the maintaining where we are, just people who are coming to the library, off the table, but now we're going to have, as it sits today, we'll have two items of 300-something thousand that we're trying to get off the list, and but if you want to push it, we can see where folks are.
Sure. I mean, I'll make my pitch, and then I'm amenable to what the committee wants to do. But again, this was a line item that we looked at last year, and we're playing catch up from many years before that as well. And I understand that $100,000 would allow our libraries to expand to a point of functionality, really, at least Korean, French, Vietnamese, maybe a little bit even of Amharic. And so, to me, when we think about what dollar for dollar return on investment, this is a really good one, I think, and to me this is worthy of at least council consideration, and I think an important conversation to be had at this moment, even if it doesn't get through reconciliation. We know it's going to be tight, but I think it's important that our colleagues understand the importance of these dollars and what we're going to be asking for next year if we're not able to squeeze this through this year, which again I would love to do.
Appreciate that. Councilmember Albornoz.
I agree very much. And as I've said before, this year in particular of all years, it's important that we continue to send the message loud and clear that Montgomery County is a welcoming community, and proud, very proud, that people from around the world have chosen us as their home. So I am fully concur.
All right. Well, then 3-0. Let's put that on the additional 100,000 in addition to the 360. And then the enhanced digital collection, which again, I don't think is enhanced. I think it's just meeting the demand, but we'll note that in the packet. Anything else on this item?
There is a third point for the operating budget, and then one more point on the
for
capital
CIP.
budget. Yeah. So for the operating budget, the county executive has also recommended $125,000 for increased department staff training. This would allow MCPL to provide access to training programs for all its merit staff, including digital literacy conferences, leadership trainings, youth programs, and racial equity and social justice trainings, as well as providing for new learning management software. So council staff recommends the placement of this item on the new and enhanced programs list as well.
Any comments on that? Okay. We'll give it a fighting chance.
And then finally, for public libraries, the county executive transmitted on April 16th an amendment to the FY 25 to 30 CIP that reflects specifically an addition of $957,000 in state aid to the library refurbishment level of effort project to support improvements to the Damascus Library. This is expected to address a cost increase for that project, and so council staff recommends approval of this amendment as well.
Absolutely, without objection. We love Damascus. And then, Councilmember Mink, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that this is a matter of logistics as we move these pieces to council. As we're looking at the world languages pieces, I want to make sure that it's understood to colleagues that the 100K is the one that that some debate could be having. We can't do the 100K and not the 360. They're not going to be able to do anything with that. So I just want to make sure that. I'm not sure what the right language is, but I just want to make sure that that gets reflected.
I'm sure you would use it for something. But it would be more just buying a little bit. But I agree. People should understand the context of the conversation. Did you want to mention the RESJ?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
The Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, as the committee is aware, issues departments its rating for its operating budget equity tool. Libraries received a rating of 6 out of 11, indicating a commitment to racial equity and social justice, and ORESJ's justification is provided in the packet.
Appreciate that. I think it underscores the, we're always in self-improvement mode and the training. I know that was one of the things too, but 6 out of 11 is certainly a commitment, and we always want to keep moving up on that path, and really appreciate the work that has been done in the department because I've seen it firsthand. So I don't know if you all want to say anything about that, but you don't have to. You're welcome not to. So we're excited to see that. Anything else, Mr. Ambright? Okay, I want to, before you go, I think Councilmember Albornoz wanted to make a comment.
Anita. We worked together in the previous administration. I got to see firsthand just how committed you are to this work and what a wonderful partner you are to all of the sister corresponding county agencies. You have big shoes to fill, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your public service and your dedication. You've left a long-lasting legacy, and you are extraordinary. You will be missed.
Here, here, and we'll be able to do that more formally before you go, before you punch out for the last time, or check out, I guess, right? not in that way though. Yeah. All right, thank you. We'll move to the next item. I think the Takoma Park folks, but. Are they here? And that's okay.
I think it'll just be OMB. Just
OMB today. Okay. You're sitting in. Okay. Sometimes she usually comes. It must have been busy today. Must be a busy day. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, this shouldn't take long then.
For FY25, the county executive recommends a increase of $11,674, or 6.77% from the FY24 approved amount for the Takoma Park Library annual payment non-departmental account. That's a total in FY25 of $184,090. The value is calculated based on the portion of real and personal property tax rates appropriated to the Department of Libraries and the assessable basis of those rates as set out in the county code. The director of the Takoma Park Library was unable to be here in person but has provided a statement that is attached to your packet at Circle 3, and council staff recommends approval of this item as recommended by the executive.
Appreciate that. And tell Ms. Jones that we missed her this time, but we'll visit her at the library, and we, without objection, we will approve the mandatory increase. Thank you all. So we'll move now to our third item, which is Kid Museum non-departmental account. So if you're here for that, please come down. Mr. Ali, I know from council staff, and I see Ms. Lesser and Mr. Brewer at least, and maybe some other folks from Kid. Ms. Riley, Director Riley. Ms. Singh. I think we have enough seats there. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. And I will turn it over to Mr. Ali to get us started and go through the packet, and then I'll see if Mr. Lesser has anything to add. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Nice to be here in a new committee. This is the Kid Museum budget. The FY25 County Executive recommendation is $1.9 million from the general fund and $1.14 million or $1.145 million from the March 27th amendments and one-time funding. So the total budget recommended for this year is $3,061,988, which is a 64.6% increase. You know, Kid Museum does, by all indications, very groundbreaking work. They're, you know, leaders in pedagogy and training, and they also provide direct services. That concept is intertwined between the sort of thought leadership and that direct service, but you know, they do both of that, and they also receive funding from other sources, the federal government, state government, corporate partners, and as well as the county, which I think in total comprises approximately half the or 25% rather of the revenue that Kid Museum has. So. Staff recommends certainly the same services budget, and then investigating and looking a little more deeply into the recommended one-time funding of 1.145. Staff just had some questions, doesn't have a specific recommendation because we think maybe the committee might be interested in getting a little more information about that proposal. The background is that in January, Kid Museum made their request, which we have attached in the packet. They requested $3.5 million from the county executive. He recommended what he recommended, plus the 1.1 in one-time funding, and so, you know, staff's asked basically what is the plan to spend that money, what is the plan to sort of ensure that it is one-time funding, which is what it's intended to be, and so there was information about an institute that was included in the original request to the county executive. Seems like an interesting proposal the committee may want more information about, and that seems to be generally the way this money will be spent in as they've indicated to staff for the 1.14, and so what staff is raising in the packet for the committee is just to really understand the plan to spend that 1.1 million, what's changed between the 707,000 that was dedicated or requested towards that effort in January. You know, what's the plan to spend it? What's the plan to sort of move towards self-sufficiency for the institute that it's ostensibly aimed towards? And so just sort of understanding whether there would be ongoing funding impacts to the operating budget in future fiscal years as well. So no position from staff on that. Just think that the committee may be interested in getting more details before making a recommendation, which I think would have to be placed on the new and enhanced programs list.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Appreciate that. So we've got a couple things going on here. So I'll first turn to Ms. Lesser to just make any comments, and if you want to address any of those issues, that would be helpful, and then we'll turn to colleagues for questions.
Sure.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Jawando and Councilmember Albornoz and Councilmember Mink for having us here today. You went faster than I expected, so excuse my cough drop. I'm still handling here, but we are honored to be here today to speak about Kid Museum service to Montgomery County residents. I'm joined by our board member, Robbie Brewer, who you all know well from Montgomery County-based law firm Birch Early and Brewer. Our esteemed board member, Antonio Tijerino from the National Hispanic Heritage Foundation, is on his way up here from the Hill to be a part of this hearing as well. So you'll see him coming in any minute now. And I'm happy to have with us as well our Chief Advancement Officer, Phyllis Kim. So really on behalf of our board, our staff, the kids, families, and teachers we serve, we want to thank you for your continuing support. As you all know, we opened our doors at the Davis Library with Anita Vassallo, who was here just moments ago, with a vision of establishing a new kind of cultural and educational resource for our community. It's our 10-year anniversary of opening in that space, and we have beyond lived into the vision of creating a space for high-impact STEM, STEAM, creative learning experiences for Montgomery County youth to develop the skills that they need to invent a better future for us all. That has happened with this county's support and the support of our full community, as you heard. We have a diverse set of revenue sources. The county is an important part, but certainly not the only source of revenue for this work. It's really in a collaboration across public and private funders that we have brought this to life. And as you know, when we opened our new 30,000 square foot flagship facility in May 2022, we've established here in Montgomery County what's now the nation's leading center for maker learning. So we are recognized nationally and internationally now for the pioneering approach to teaching and learning that we are bringing to this community. And we're very proud of the impact we're having right here in Montgomery County. To date, Kid Museum has served more than 370,000 people with a deep commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last year, we doubled the number of people we served, reaching 30,000 visitors. Please join. I already introduced you, so please join us. This is Antonio Tijerino from Hispanic Heritage Foundation and Kid Museum board member. We consistently prioritize youth from populations that are underrepresented in STEM fields. 72% of the youth served in our school programs are from Title I or high farms rate schools, and 8 in 10 participants identify as students of color or multiracial. With support from the county and other public and private funders, over 50% of all of our programs are provided free of charge for those who would experience any financial barrier. Part of what makes Kid Museum unique is that we serve kids both in school and out of school and in deep partnership with our community. We've attracted top-tier talent from around the country with a team of professional educators and program designers who are designing and delivering programs for across that K-12 continuum. We work in partnership with MCPS to embed our programs in the school day. We're working deeply with teachers to provide teacher professional development. In partnership with USG, we've dramatically expanded those teacher offerings in this past year and have a year-long fellowship that's reaching teachers from Montgomery County and around the DMV. And we complement these experiences with after-school camp and family and community programs that are offered in partnership with county agencies like the Recreation Department, the libraries, and community organizations like Identity, Crittenden Services, and many others. So we are deeply intertwined in our community and deeply focused on serving Montgomery County's youth. Over the past 10 years, we've served as a critical partner to support COVID recovery and accelerate student achievement in STEM and workforce-aligned skills. 3 out of 4 of our middle school students report that they're interested in pursuing a STEM career. That is a phenomenal outcome for the diverse population that we are serving. At the elementary level, 95% of students experience joy in learning STEM concepts. 86% of elementary students say that people like me can be scientists or engineers. These are little data points. They're important data points, but they speak to that identity that we're forming and that sense of self and sense of belonging. And part of why Kid Museum is now recognized as a best-in-class provider of innovative educational experiences for youth of diverse backgrounds. So while our work has gained national and international recognition, we remain grounded in serving Montgomery County residents as our first and foremost priority. Since the outset, we've been focused on how to provide high-impact, scalable educational experiences that meet the needs of diverse populations in our community. Already 10 years ago, when we were founded, our world was changing fast and schools were struggling to keep up. And now these gaps are only widening. I don't need to tell this committee. We're struggling to make up for the impacts of COVID. Digital technology is transforming the lives of our children, and AI is transforming all aspects of our economy. We urgently need to increase our investment in innovative approaches to teaching and learning that are aligned with the changing needs of the economy and the changing needs of our residents. So the budget items that are before you today represent a continuation of county support for Kid Museum as a resource to meet this need. And in addition to our base budget item, we're requesting a one-time allocation of approximately $1.1 million to support the creation of a new R&D arm for kids' work to accelerate efforts to create scalable educational experiences for Montgomery County youth. With this support, Kid Museum will ramp up our curriculum development, teacher training, knowledge sharing, so that kids' unique approach to teaching and learning can be delivered at scale throughout the county with our partners in MCPS, classroom teachers, and out-of-school time providers and youth development organizations. This will truly enable KID to live into the vision of serving as a real-time innovation hub for our community. So just as one example, this past year we piloted a new program called Maker Math that supported rising 7th graders to strengthen their math skills. This was a deep collaboration with MCPS math curricular leadership, and in a 3-week period, this program saw significant gains for students. 82% of students demonstrated increased resilience in math, and student test scores increased by 9 percentage points. That is off the charts compared to other program gains, and certainly in that amount of time. With dedicated R&D support, Kid Museum would have the resources to refine this program and scale it to reach students throughout the county. These are vital investments that our community's youth are going underdeveloped right now. Through this work, Kid Museum will leverage our 10 years experience designing high-impact STEM and future-focused programs to provide an enduring source of innovation and impact. We believe this investment will have long-lasting positive effects on our community, and we hope that you'll prioritize this activity at this critical time to support our community's youth. So thank you. Those are the prepared remarks that I have. I do want to address the issue of the funding for this one-time expenditure. Our original request was for more, was requesting $3 million to support direct delivery and the creation of this R&D space. This is it's not a physical space. It's an extension of our work. It is how we will operationalize the research and development to bring these curricular experiences to many more students in our community. 2 years ago, we were serving close to 7,000 MCPS students. As MCPS's spending power has become more constrained, we're seeing that reduced year over year. We need to find a way that we are continuing to infuse innovation in what teaching and learning looks like in this community in a real-time way for our students. Our middle school students are going to be in the workforce in 5-7 years. We can't wait to do this. This is work that we need to do now, and as we went through our budget process, the $3 million was not approachable. So we revised what that could look like in this year, understanding budget constraints. We think we can make very important strides in this work with a $1.1 million investment, and our goal is to leverage that with bringing in other funders, federal support, private foundation support, and that's something that we have a track record of doing for the past 10 years. So that is our focus and opening remarks to share here.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I think it's good context for us to ask other questions, and welcome. Tony, thank you for joining us, and the board members. Thank you, Robbie, and thank you. And Director Riley, good to see you. So the 707 versus the 1.1, let's just talk about that. So obviously you made a request of the executive at 3 million, at the big level, right? You know, and so that wasn't doable. So what happened? What was the communication, or why was the request for 700,000 sent, and how did that change? Could you just help us understand that?
Sure. So the 700 and change of the original request was for the services associated with standing up the institute itself, the creation of a platform to share digital resources, training materials, to test those training materials. What it relied on was having the opportunity for direct service to students and direct training for teachers as the pilot programs that we're building those learnings around. So that was an integral piece of the full $3.5 million original request. When you scale that back, we need to scale the whole thing back. So there still is investment in the digital supports, the technology for information sharing and so forth, but we need to do that in the context of testing real programs like this Maker Math example, or our Latinx Maker Lab that's working with teachers who serve Latino students and getting them engaged in computer science learning. This was a collaboration with Hispanic Heritage Foundation. All of those experiences need to be created and tested in real life, and then we can refine them in an R&D format. So the scaling back from 3.5 million meant we had to scale the whole vision back, but we still need to have the base of some direct delivery to students, direct delivery to teachers as the proving ground, the pilot for those experiences.
Got it. So you communicated that to the executive, but he said, well, I'll do the 707 because, or whatever it was, because that deals with the infrastructure. Is that, I mean, we have folks from the executive branch here, so can you comment on the executive submission?
Alicia Singh, Office of Management and Budget.
I know I gave you the hard ones 2 days in a row, Ms. Singh.
Well, the CE's recommendation took into consideration the financial constraints based on all the requests coming in, so he was not able to fund the whole request, so it was just a portion of that request.
Okay, got it. Okay. And I guess my last question, I'll turn to colleagues. There's a lot of questions here. We can share them all, but we first just say, you all do great work. You know we have great respect, and not just respect, admiration. We've seen it. I've seen it in the lives of my kids. I've seen it in the lives of other students over the last 10 years. So that's not a question here. The only considerations here are, one, just obviously affordability constraints, which are ever present right now, but also just what you're actually able to do in this year, and what's the best funding. Well, how can we best help you leverage what you actually can accomplish in FY25? So that would kind of be my second question of, based on other commitments, or, you know, I know you have your advancement, you have the money folks here to your left and to your right. What do you think is doable? How would you leverage county investment in this next fiscal year? And to what level, you know?
Okay. No, I think that this investment is eminently doable in this coming year. This is allowing us to have demonstration for federal grants that are critical to be able to continue to grow this capacity around research and development. This is continuing to build on the success of our elementary and middle school curricular experiences and training. And I think that this is really about being able to invest in the research and the infrastructure that allows us to scale that R&D component. And I think that it is, it's not only doable, but it's necessary this year as we really see what the sort of overall fiscal climate is. We know that we need to diversify the sources of income that can support this work, support the quality of the work that we're bringing into this community. We want to continue to have Montgomery County as the test site where we are showing what we can do in terms of moving the needle for diverse populations and engagement in STEM and future career opportunities. And this is work that we are poised to take on. As you heard, we proposed being able to do even more than this in the coming year. So we do believe that this is eminently doable in the coming year.
And I would say, good afternoon, committee members, Robbie Brewer, that from the board perspective, we're very focused on what kids' capacity is. Took on this big space obligation 2 years ago. That was a topic of considerable discussion. And our board now is an amazingly strong, fully engaged group of people. Tony's just one example, but we have many. And we're focused for the longer term. We're very grateful for the county support, but with some strategic hires at Kid Museum, including Phyllis to my right, and others, and our finance committee, we are committed to making KID a long-lasting, sustainable organization. This is our base. This is our home. We have lots of work that is yet to be done here. We have great partners with the school system and the county government, but there's a lot that private nonprofits can do, and our board, if you knew all of them, you'd be very impressed about the different perspectives they bring, and we're fully behind our leadership, and it's helping the philanthropic efforts as well. So I would echo what Cara has said, but give a slightly different perspective on it.
If
Yes,
I could add,
please.
as the weak link on the board, that yes, the board's very impressive. But also, and anyone that both of you know me well, and Kristin, it's nice to meet you, but I'm always going to be restless in terms of what we're currently doing. One of the areas that we are looking to expand in is mindful making, which is to address the issues of mental health, specifically here in the county, especially among Black and Latinos and girls specifically, in terms of over-indexing and in having suicidal shots and all that. We're looking at being able to address that issue at a younger age through making, and there's a lot of research that points to that being an effective way. The other is the parental engagement piece that is already part of the spirit of making, just in terms of parents being, and I know that I can't help my kids with their math homework as of 6th grade, but this gives you an opportunity to connect with your children, to connect with their learning process in a way that's very different than you can if your child is going to a traditional school. And also the importance of being headquartered in Montgomery County. I travel all over the country, and I have been out in San Francisco, where I just was last week, and they were talking about Kid Museum. And that, to me, is also to be kind of the jewel of making that is right here in Montgomery County, where we all live. It's very important, I think, to maintain that level of effectiveness as an organization, and we need your support.
Appreciate that. Last point, and I'll turn to Councilmember Albornoz and then Councilmember Mink. Just the items, so I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You would be able to use this money this year to impact teaching and learning in MCPS students this year, this fiscal year. Okay. And there was a question in the packet, which I think is a very relevant one. What would our dollars be used primarily for? I'm assuming the build out of the platform would be a big part of it, because you got to get that going. And then on top of that, what about the other, if that's the 707-ish, what's the other
Right.
400,000?
So it certainly is the build out of that infrastructure to support the R&D, but it also is direct delivery. Because this is a design-based approach to research, it's direct delivery to students and teachers of programs that we're validating the concepts of what what our initial findings are. So the example of Maker Math, we need to take that to a larger number of students and test it in multiple sites. We need to rapidly scale that to reach more students and understand how we can, at a minimum, maintain that success, hopefully even improve upon it, right? What are the teacher supports? What are the digital assets that we can give to teachers? How can the Kid Museum team be a partner and an ally in bringing this to scale in our community? Again, in classrooms and in out-of-school time settings, we have the ability to go between these in a way that not every educational provider does. And so really tailoring those opportunities so we can meet this need now before we continue to see widening gaps for our students.
Appreciate that. I'll come back. Councilmember Albornoz.
Oh, man. So last year, I had the opportunity to attend one of the many workshops I've attended since Kids Inception, and one of the most compelling one-on-one conversations I had of all of last year occurred during that time. And so it was a workshop teaching teachers how to do this work, how to unlock creativity in their students, and how to unlock creativity in themselves. And this teacher got very emotional when she was talking about the program, because she said that she was going to quit. She was going to leave the profession. She had absolutely had enough. And if not for that workshop, if not for those connections, it gave her a lifeline. So, numbers are important. Outcome data is important. There are anecdotal stories we could tell about so many different programs and services that we provide here in our community, but an important and critical one of many solutions is right before us in addressing a myriad of issues and challenges that our students and our faculty and staff are facing at levels that I've never seen before in my entire life. And I had my meeting with the teachers union just last night, as they're meeting with all of us in their budget deliberations. I had meetings with members of the Board of Education this morning, and everybody is saying more or less the same thing. We need help. And I think this is a very unique and important way of providing that level of support and help. And it's been tested. And I know that with additional investment, it will be tested more, and it can be expanded, and it can and should be taken to scale. So I just want to personally thank you, Ms. Lesser. I've seen this program since the inception when it was just an idea, and I think it is one of the most important and relevant success stories that I've come across in my 20-plus years working for this county. So truly, kudos to you and your team. I do have a couple of just logistical questions. So what age groups do you intend to target for this particular pilot for the Institute?
First of all, thank you for those comments and for seeing the work that our whole team is deeply engaged in bringing to life in this community. And it's true that the teachers want this as we get past a lot of the bigger budget numbers and all of the machinations of figuring out how to make our county work. This is something the teachers are clamoring for, just like students and families. So I appreciate your holding that up. And thank you for recognizing all of the work that's gone into creating this organization and this work in this community. In terms of the specifics of the work before us right now, we are continuing to build that full K-12 continuum of programs and services. We are in different stages of development for our elementary, middle, and high school programs. Our elementary and middle school programs is where we will continue to lean in as our most proven assets right now that we can scale in both that in-school and out-of-school time experience. So especially grades 2 through 8 is where I think we can have the greatest near-term scalable impact. And I don't need to tell this committee about where those needs are, right? And we know that 8th grade results start in 2nd grade. They start in kindergarten, right? So the earlier we can start getting to students and building these year-over-year experiences, the greater impact we're going to have. That is one of the goals of the Institute, is to maintain that longitudinal experience for a cohort of students so we can really see that clear line of impact year over year for individual youth. That's something that, frankly, has been up and down with relationships and opportunities in different schools. And so in the context of a research institute and being able to engage a group of students and teachers in a research cohort, it gives you more control to make that happen. So I think that grades 2 to 8 is where you'll see our primary focus. We also are very focused on how to expand the opportunities for teens. This is something coming at us from the users of our programs wanting more opportunity to continue this work beyond 8th grade. We've always had teens engaged, as you know from your days at the rec department, and certainly Robin Riley knows as well. Teens are an integral part of our program, but we've been expanding our curricular offerings for teens, and that's another area of innovation that we want to see grow with this. And I think, we're talking about the students ultimately who will be affected, but circling back to your original comments, it's about teachers. It is about supporting the teachers, the classroom teachers, and the youth development workers who are working with those populations and being a partner to support that work at the community level.
I appreciate that. Just two final questions before yielding back to the chair. So the partnership with MCPS all these years has grown. It's been so important. And like any partnership or relationship, it depends on the personal connections you have. I know you've been deeply connected to previous superintendents, and you look forward to continuing that tradition. I, in my conversations with board members this morning, reminded everybody what an important alliance this is and one that we must keep going. Can you talk about that partnership with MCPS and why it's so important?
Yeah, could not agree more of the importance of this partnership. I will say when we started Kid Museum, we expected that this would primarily exist in the out-of-school time space, and I think it's part of how we came to rec department originally, that we would primarily be in the out-of-school time space. Well, our schools surprised us because they said, come on in. We want this in what school looks like in addition to out-of-school time, and there's real opportunity to bridge those environments and not have them be silos. And we have had consistently strong relationships with now 5 superintendents in the 10 years that Kid Museum has been in existence, which is another story. But we have had consistent relationships with the leadership of our schools because they have seen the value of this partnership, a public-private partnership, where we have the agility to move in ways that a bureaucracy can't always do. Where we're bringing community energy and support to influencing what learning can look like. That's something that is very hard for schools to make happen. And I think a real willingness to innovate together. And so we've had very, very strong partnership for many years now that's allowed us to really scale up and be able to develop these initial programs that and we're looking forward to continuing that. We had initial meetings with Dr. Felder and Dr. Johnson as they came in and are getting settled in the interim role, and we are confident that we're going to continue to build these partnerships going forward. So it's been absolutely critical to those school relationships, the teacher relationships, and the student relationships that we've been able to form.
I appreciate that, and we'll help with the facilitation of continuing the great partnership we've had with MCPS. We had a good meeting at KID just a couple of months ago. It's more transition at MCPS, but we'll work through that. Final point for now is, and Mr. Ali, great job, by the way. This is the second time I've had a chance to see one of your packets, and you've really hit the ground running, my friend. So lucky you're here. But the question of funding is obviously a legitimate one given the current environment we're in. So I just want to expand upon that a little bit. So the Obama administration before, I know, really uplifted this work and was a strong partner in helping to engage. We took a 4-year break, but now the Biden administration has once again re-engaged. I know there are lots of pockets of resources and money at the federal level that we would be ripe to be able to go after to be innovative here. Is that through the Department of Education, or are there other agencies that we may be targeting and could work collaboratively towards, with a partnership with MCPS and others, go after?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Definitely Department of Education is one source, and we have proposals in the works with the Department of Education right now. Also the National Science Foundation, and there's the Institute for Museum and Library Services is another source of potential funds. There are a lot of pockets of federal funds that are, really squarely focus on how do we change what learning looks like and infuse greater innovation into education as our whole economy is changing. So I think this does come back to what you raised previously of the importance of the partnerships with MCPS, with the county, to be partners in pursuing those funding opportunities, for the federal agency partners to see that we have that support and integration with our community, and politically have the support to make these changes is important to see that we're poised for those dollars.
Great. And it certainly helps to be at the White House for National Space Week, and they featured Kid and the video game that all of you played at one point. But there's a sense of urgency, and waiting to have these grants fulfilled by the federal government can be exhaustive. And so we want to make sure that Montgomery County children don't have to wait, and their parents.
Appreciate that. I didn't play the games. My kids played the games, but appreciate that. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate the work that you all do and the population who you target and serve, and the particular needs that you are focused on. Obviously, that's very much aligned with the mission of this council and of this county. My questions are about in the budget space that we're in. If this is, and as we're looking at, presumably due to funding MCPS, decreasing their work with the Kid Museum, whether this is the right time for the council to be funding with the one-time funds the growth of the institute, especially to this degree with over $1 million of funds. If MCPS, if so much of this work is targeted at our serving MCPS students and staff, and MCPS is saying that they don't have enough funds to be able to fund their $1 million contract with the Kid Museum, does it make sense for us to be funding at $1 million additional growth of the Kid Museum? Would you be able to speak to that?
Yeah, I think that this is from where we sit makes it that much more important for the county to be able to support this work right now, to not have students in our community and teachers in our community feel the whiplash of a retrenchment of these innovation opportunities in their schools. We have been serving 10 Title I schools, the entire second, third, fourth grades, with our innovation programs through MCPS. Next year, we're slated to serve 0. That is a tremendous whiplash for the community that's been engaged in this work. And I don't think that it's a reflection of the desires of the leadership of MCPS. I think that it is a reflection of a tight economic times, tight budget times. So I think what's different about this in the one-time funding environment is we are really looking at how not only do we have some direct delivery, but we're leveraging those services to very intentionally and quickly scale them to reach many more students, both in the in-school and out-of-school time settings. So while we're serving students during the school day, we also are a vital provider for the school day out, professional days, camps. And these are opportunities where we can fold those same learnings in. Our math programs can be delivered in the context of a summer program. It doesn't have to be during the school day. So understanding how we can continue to maintain this innovation in learning for students at a time when MCPS is facing new types of constraints, I think is important. And I think that it is a time for the county to stand up and be able to say that this is a stake in the ground where we won't lose ground of what we've already accomplished over these past 10 years.
Thank you. Yeah, I certainly want to make sure that we're maintaining with the level of funding that we're giving to MCPS at this moment. We're not maintaining because they're not able to afford their contract with you. So we could take this $1 million and we could say, well, let's give it to MCPS to fund this contract so they can, so they can ramp back up the number of students that are being served. They trimmed it back last year by, almost but not quite 2/3, and now they aren't able to fund this contract at all for next year. So we could say, okay, well, let's move $1 million so they could fund this contract, or let's fund a way for students to be able to take advantage of these opportunities outside of school. And so that's kind of I absolutely want our students to be accessing the services. I do not at all doubt the quality and the value of them. What I'm trying to work out is, we're trying to reach MCPS students. We're trying to make sure that they are served with programming like this, and what is most appropriate for us as we look at how to do that. And that's the
Right.
circle I'm trying to square here.
And so I guess I would say that there are two things, and I'm going to ask my board members to chime in and share their thoughts as well. But one is that we are a demonstrated partner in leveraging county investments to bring in significantly more investment from both public and private sources to this cause. And so I think that is one place where it is a different type of investment. A second way that it's a different type of investment is that we are looking to develop these products and services in a way that, frankly, our school system doesn't have the same capacity to do. We are focused, we are organized in a different way, and we are able to leverage this in a way that continues to build the impact over time. So it really is a one-time investment in creating that infrastructure to support ongoing innovation in our community and meaningfully ramp that up in a way that is urgent for our community.
I would say, Ms. Mink, in response to your question, yes, from your perspective and the structure that you're operating on, it's a one-time investment. But it's not a one-time investment for Kid Museum. This is helping build a sustainable series of opportunities for learning for students, which, when a variety of funding opportunities arise, whether through private philanthropy, individuals or foundations, or otherwise federal grants, we are building capacity to do this better. So yes, it's one time in a limited sense, but we're building something more sustainable. The other thing I would say, being a little bit more direct, is that Kid Museum has assembled an incredible staff of educators. They're a little bit different from some of our teaching staff. They're a little bit more entrepreneurial. They're committed to a narrower focus in the STEM world and the maker world, but they're unlocking learning potential by our students in vast ways. And it's complementary and not competitive with MCPS. And so this additional funding helps build on that. It helps build the infrastructure that KID has created already, and it allows much stronger utilization of the maker learning ability as we go along. Conversely, not having it means that we're going to rise and fall sometimes precipitously in the last 2 years with the variabilities of MCPS budget. Now, I'm not being critical. They have their own issues and needs.
Please feel free to be critical.
But I'm just suggesting we're an alternative that has value, and it has sustainable value, and in our view, it's not one time. It's going to unlock more philanthropy and more support, and it's going to grow this program, which for the county is not going to be a one-time endeavor. It's going to be an enduring endeavor.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, and that makes sense. I look forward to continuing to learn more as the conversation continues. Obviously, we need to make sure that we are, to the MCPS budget point, that MCPS is reaching enough funds to be able to fund contracts like this, if we're going to really be able to have our students take advantage of them. And we know that they're struggling to fund, some of the basics. We don't have enough in special ed. We don't have enough in security. There's a lot of pieces. And, we're trying to do all of these things at the same time, and you all are filling an extremely important role. So I'm not saying that there's anything is less important here. I'm just saying it's a difficult space that we're working within. If there's something you can do to get this off the ground with less funding, that obviously makes it a little bit of an easier conversation. Yeah, I look forward to continuing to learn more, and I very much appreciate the work you all do.
Councilmember Albornoz.
Thanks. I'll just say really quickly to Councilmember Mink's point, because it's a really good one. It's completely 100% relevant. I'll give you two examples, though, just in the last, I guess, 18 years. One is linkages to learning. It's unusual that linkages' budget is not necessarily within MCPS, but the reason for that was because it was on the chopping block at one point because of budget constraints that MCPS had. But everybody recognized the importance of keeping the work going, and so the executive branch absorbed that cost to be able to continue to the work to complement what MCPS was doing at the time. Similarly, with out-of-school time programs during the recession, we at one point had an after-school program at every middle school in Montgomery County, a lot of it funded by MCPS. That was also cut, and so we absorbed it and then turned that into Excel Beyond the Bell. So I think there's a lot of different ways of getting to the same end result. The important is the end result. And so that's why I think this investment is not a nice to have, but critical, because I know that you all are going to directly contribute to addressing the crisis that we're in, particularly with math scores, but then also supporting teachers who are doing their best and holding on by a thread these days. So I will support this particular line item, but I know, Mr. Chair, you talked about potentially splitting it up into two tranches, which is okay too.
Appreciate that. Yeah, just trying to thread the needle here. As the board members know, you try to build consensus on your committee and council here. So I want to give it the best opportunity to do well. I think the points are really good ones. We're dealing with the MCPS budget right now, imminently, we'll make a recommendation on that next week. There's a lot of need. There's a lot of need. Certainly the work that you're talking about, I do really appreciate the description, because I think making an investment in something that can not only help more of our students over time, but students potentially elsewhere. If I hear the bold vision that I'm hearing, that I know the All-Star board is behind, and that you, Ms. Lesser, you and your team are behind, I do think it's a good investment. So what I'm going to propose to my colleagues is that we put the 707 and the I'm a lawyer like Robbie, 438, which I think is the remaining, put them on in two tranches, recommending both, but also just understanding that we're in a difficult budget situation, and certainly I'm supportive of both, and I think we'll work hard with colleagues, to get, and I know you'll work hard with colleagues to get them to be supportive of both amounts. But does that work for colleagues? So that would be the 707, which would allow you to build the infrastructure, and then the 438, which would allow you to do the other very important items you talked about. Hopefully we'll put both on the new and enhanced programs list, but and let's make sure we explain the context of what each is for, so colleagues understand that as we move forward. But you're doing great work. We believe in you, and just are thankful. And I agree with you. It's not. We don't want to see a rolling back of your engagement with our students, not at a time when we're seeing, particularly in math, what we're seeing. So, yeah, Councilmember Mink.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and I appreciate that this is going to be an ongoing conversation. I look forward to sitting down with you all to talk about the details. I think that Councilmember Albornoz made a good point about linkages and EBB, Excel Beyond the Bell, and so as we're part of what I would like to continue thinking about then is how do we make sure that in the context of growing the availability of resources and programming here, that our numbers with MCPS are going to go up, because we did see a reduction again over the last couple of years, and we see, we're forecasting another reduction because of the end of this contract. And so if we're going to step in and provide for, making sure that that doesn't happen, I want to make sure this is a worthwhile investment, and then it's going to quickly be a worthwhile investment.
From my perspective, you can also help with MCPS. We certainly wouldn't object to that.
Thank you.
Well, we certainly will have them here next week, and I think we expect that if we make an investment in our students elsewhere, that it would be leveraged and coordinated within MCPS and the board as well. So we certainly will help you with that. Yes, ma'am.
Just a point of clarification, are we okay with the 3%?
Yes.
Okay.
We're also, yes, absolutely, okay with the 3% contractual increase. Yeah, exactly right. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lester. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. So we are going to move now to our fourth item, the Arts and Humanities Council non-departmental account. And I think I see Ms. Jenkins and Ms. Krupe from our staff. Come on down. Hello. Good to see you. Thank you. And Mr. Krupe, do you want to tee us up, get us started here? And then I'll see if you have any comments, Ms. Jenkins, which I know you will.
Good afternoon. The county executive is recommending a $6.8 million operating budget for the Arts and Humanities Council non-departmental account. That's an increase of about $200,000 from the previous fiscal year, and the entirety of that increase is just due to the 3% inflationary adjustment for nonprofit contracts. The Arts and Humanities Council is requesting an approximately $700,000 increase above the executive's recommended funding level. The reason for that increase is, as a grant-making institution, the Arts and Humanities Council has seen an increase in grant applications, and the requested amount of $700,000 corresponds to the amount, the projected amount of the increase that they're planning to see based on the applications that they've seen coming in so far. The Arts and Humanities Council has also provided a letter to the council that details by specific grant fund where they've seen those increases, and provides more detail about their projections. Council staff recommends approval of the county executive's recommended budget, and if the committee decides to recommend the additional funding of $700,000, that funding would be placed on the new and enhanced programs list.
The $200,000 would not be because it's the inflationary.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay, Ms. Jenkins, welcome, and tell us about the arts community.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you, and I appreciate being here today. Susan Jenkins, CEO, Arts and Humanities Council. Thank you to all of the council members on this committee. I know that I have testified before you extensively in the past, and so I'll tell you that as your non-departmental account, the Arts and Humanities Council is proud to do the work that we do across the county, supporting over 500 arts and humanities organizations and over 2,000 individual scholars, and growing. And so I would just say that what we have seen over the last several years, and having been in this position now over 15 years, what I've seen is steady growth in our community with artists, scholars, humanities scholars who are coming into our county and doing incredible work. What we see, and this request for $700,000 over the county executive's recommendation, is not that those organizations who are already in our grant pool are asking for more. Actually, we'd be holding them pretty much at level. What we're seeing, though, is after the pandemic, we saw huge growth in this community, largely in part because the world turned to this community for solace, comfort, and support during the pandemic. So last year we saw over 11% growth. This year, and we weren't able to fund that. This year we're seeing about a 14% increase in growth. And so what we're asking for this year is to just meet the demand for new requests, Not that we're trying to enhance the funding that we already supply, but these are newcomers to the field. And as we see them coming to the table, our request is so that we can supply them with the same type of technical assistance, professional development, and grant support that we do those others who have come to the table a little bit earlier. I think that's the summary. I know that you know what we do. We support organizations that have budgets that are as small as $15,000, and we have organizations that have budgets as much as $15 million. The services that are needed to support those are very different. A $15,000 organization needs professional development, technical assistance, hand-holding, coaching. A $15 million organization needs coaching, networking, support, national thought leadership. We're providing all of that. We have a relatively small staff of about 8 people, and we're serving the entire county. I'm very proud to say that our services are well engaged by the entire community, and the work that we've been doing for our cultural plan that we talked about when I testified about the Public Art Trust shows that we have deep investment in researching the community to know exactly what they need. I also serve as the treasurer of Maryland Citizens for the Arts, the advocacy agency for our State Arts Council. And what we're seeing in Montgomery County, we're seeing mirrored at the state level. We're seeing a new, increased desire for the same kind of accommodations that have been made for others in the state. We're seeing a new, renewed attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion, so much so that the Arts and Humanities Council has invested in training for our grantees, for their boards, for our staff, to make certain that we understand how best to address the multi-generational, multicultural community that we serve. So I'm asking today that you consider the support of our request, understanding, having heard all of the committee's deliberations today, that we know that we need about $900,000 in total, which is about $700,000 over what the county executive is recommending. And if possible, we're hoping that if this committee is not able to recommend it all in one tranche, that you would consider 2 tranches of $350,000, because knowing that we need almost $1 million, if we were able to get what the county executive is recommending and about $350,000 more, that's about half of what we need. We'd be able to deal with those smaller arts and humanities organizations, individual artists and scholars, those artists and scholars that provide augmented support to schools, things that you talked about with Kara just a few moments ago, and to provide growth opportunities for the smallest of the small that we see now burgeoning in the county that are mostly more culturally specific than the organizations that we already serve. We want to be able to support their growth and be able to welcome them as we have others over the 15 years that I've served. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you, Ms. Jenkins, and thank you for your work and dedication over these last 15 years and more. Just to understand and I know that we have some of this in our packet, remind me how much money in grants did you put out last year?
Last year, we put out all but $800,000 of the
Of your total appropriation.
Yeah.
So of the only $800,000 was reserved for administrative purposes,
right,
and other purposes.
Yeah, we operate at less than 15% in administrative funding.
Got it. And so the increase that you're requesting is, as is reflected in Mr. Kruppe's packet, is all for these, so you can give out more grants.
Absolutely, especially to individual artists, scholars, and small culturally specific organizations.
Got it. Well, I know we've seen firsthand recently, especially during the pandemic, how critical the work that you all were doing to keep our institutions and help keep them afloat, and they are a critical part of our county and our community. So certainly understand that, and thank you for tying in the connection to our schools and our students and our young people as well. Yes, go ahead.
I would just like to make another comment, and that is about economic impact and
Absolutely.
economic development. You know, the county is investing about $6.3 million, and through hard data, not conjecture, but hard data, I know that we're delivering about $183 million as a return on that investment. I don't know any other sector that's delivering at that level. And so your investment, I want to say that our investment as a county is well tuned to our desires to build the economic resources for Montgomery County. Plus, in our sector, we employ over 4,300 workers, which is more than police, fire, and security services combined in Montgomery County. So we're not just talking about frilly. We're talking about jobs. We're talking about economic development, economic impact. And I think that that's a good part of the conversation that we shouldn't forget, because it's not just, as I say, we're not just a pretty face, but we're about economic impact too.
Exactly. You always make that point, and I always appreciate when you do, because it's about more than just helping people deal with outlets and having a nice surrounding and having cultural understanding. It is about jobs and economic impact as well. I don't know if colleagues have any comments, but I'm inclined, I won't bury the lead, I'm inclined to put it on with 2 tranches, I think just consistent with what we've done today and the affordability needs, but underscoring how important the work is. So, Councilmember Mink.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that this is also the return on investment here, as to the point that you're making about economic development. The return on investment comes in a multitude of ways, but to include actual dollars. And when we ensure that our community is able to, is on the receiving end of that, it's helping people to earn money, it's helping people to spend money, and all within the county. That's helpful to us and saves the county money in a number of places as well. So I'm certainly amenable to sending both of those tranches with our recommendation. Thank you.
Councilmember Albornoz.
I agree. I can't believe it's been 15 years, Suze. It's really something. But and we have 2 incredible arts-based organizations representatives, maybe more in the audience. I don't know, and a lot more watching at home. And I've shared this publicly before. I chair the Health and Human Services Committee. The number one issue that our residents have told us that they are concerned about from a public health standpoint is mental health. And you all are a very important and critical part of the solution to addressing those myriad of needs. And it's multi-generational, it's multicultural, it's multi-ethnic. You are in every zip code in our community, directly and indirectly. So I think it's worth sharing this information with our colleagues and having it be discussed within the context of the other myriad of needs, because it is important.
Couldn't agree more. Councilmember Mink.
Just another quick point that I think is worth mentioning, even though I know we're all in agreement up here, which is great, but that as our newcomer population continues to grow, funding like this, I think, continues to grow in importance also, because this is reflective of a new community. We're helping people to get things started, to get off the ground, and also to contribute in a visible way to the fabric of our community, and to express, to bring and share their cultures with the wider community. This is part of the investment that goes along with being a community that is growing in diversity. So to continue to grow this bucket of funds, I think, is very appropriate, and it's very helpful that it's also economically helpful as well. Did you want to make a comment?
I was just going to say it's a signal to belonging.
Absolutely.
This kind of support is a signal to belonging.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of questions about, where are the arts going, what's happening with the arts in the wake of the pandemic, and trying to figure out where is the excitement, where is the, how do we deal with the arts in the wake of that huge upheaval, and the continued interest that that you all have had in the grants program in such a wide array of different types of expressions of art, I think is a signal also to finding the answer to that question.
Thank you so much. That's exactly right. We are a community that is wonderfully diverse, and we want everyone to belong. But that takes work. It takes work, and it takes art and humanities work. So thank you to our arts organizations that are here to support. we really appreciate what you do, and without objection, we will put the additional $700,000 on to the new and enhanced list at $350 each in a tranche, and we'll put that forward with a strong recommendation to the full council. All right, thank you. Thank you all. And now we'll turn to our last item, last but not least, community use of public facilities, or CUPF. And welcome the director down. It's good to see you, Ms. Bell Pearson. Yeah, been thinking about you. Oh, thank you. Okay. Appreciate. We just got the annual report, which I'm assuming it will be on the website or is on the website. And yes. Okay, wonderful. So folks, for the millions watching at home, can have access. Start with you, Ms. Yao, to tee us off, and then I'll turn to our Ms. Ramona Bell Pearson.
Okay, good afternoon. For the community use of public facilities, the executive is recommending $11,440,573 in fiscal year 25. It's an increase of $301,237, or a 2.7% increase from the 2024 budget. It's also an increase of 0.8 FTEs, and the table on page 2 of your packet shows the trend from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 25. As far as the racial equity and social justice statement, or the operating budget equity tool, the ORESJ concluded that the department is demonstrating an emerging commitment to advancing racial equity and social justice in Montgomery County. The narrative explained that that CUF's partnership with the Collaboration Council is helpful, but details were not provided on the scope of activities under review and the process for integrating community needs into CUF's budget. Last year, the department demonstrated a strong commitment to advancing RESJ in the county, so the committee may be interested in understanding how CUF will work with the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice over the coming year to either align their work or their OBET responses to reflect a strong commitment to racial equity.
Thank you, Ms. Yao. So turn it to you, Director Bell Pearson, just if any comments or color that you want to add to the request or to the comment about RESJ as well.
Sure, thank you. Ramona Bell Pearson, Director of Community Use of Public Facilities. We have been working in tandem with the Collaboration Council as a quasi inside-outside agency organization. We also have been working with MCPS, the out-of-school time office. We have been working with HHS. We've been working with Recreation. We've tried to, because we don't do programming, we do permitting, we've tried to utilize our resources and our supports in the permitting aspect to allow other opportunities in schools, in areas where we don't traditionally see out of school, after school, evening, weekends, whatever types of activities. We saw, especially during the pandemic, everybody refers to that. That was a big wake-up call for everybody, us included. And we saw that there was a big need, and primarily in schools where we didn't have childcare already existing and we didn't have after-school opportunities. So that's how we have been, at this point, leveraging our attempts. I do have upcoming meetings with HHS and with Recreation to understand how we can further move that on, because there has been a proposal by the executive through another agency to make the youth safety attempts and programs become an initiative with some funding attached to it. So we will also be partnered with that too. So we've been trying to branch out into other areas and utilize existing resources, existing programming to do expansion, as well as to put more of a footprint in the neighborhoods where we don't exist.
I appreciate that, and I know you all are always in that position of kind of being in the middle of a lot of complex issues. You know, thinking of the sports advisory issue with the fields and all those things that impact equity in a big way, but you're not you were trying to manage and deal with multiple partners. I had a couple questions, and I'll see if colleagues do as well. You mentioned MCPS. They're piloting a new process for before and after school care and child care procurement.
Mm-hmm.
And are you all involved in developing the schedule for that? What's your involvement, if any, with that pilot, and will there be information available on that?
There will be at this point, they're still in the development stage. They have done a pilot, which was indicated in the packet, and they did fill a source or need in 4 schools that did not have existing childcare. The pilot was a learning tool for them to understand how their procurement process would be able to develop a rebid process that would then be rolled out to all the schools. And that's where they are now. They're finalizing that so that they can then open the bid process for all schools. We are involved from a scheduling standpoint in terms of permitting the facilities and making sure that the schedules that the providers have are consistent with the schedules that the schools have. We will also be advising them administratively through the rebid process, the purpose being to be the administrative arm to help them as they once they make the selection, then we'll take over and make sure that the providers are placed in the schools, that they meet the needs, that they're consistent with their licensing, with the state, and all of those types of things.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll come back to that. We had a big conversation about our early child care and work, and it's just a lot of pieces there, but this is another one of those. And I also want to say thank you, Ms. Lopez Cuevas, for being here as well. Good to see you. And Ms. Singh for staying on with us. The demographic data, to the RESJ thing, how do you capture and analyze your demographic data and around who's using community facilities, and how can we do better at that?
Well, we do have limitations because we don't ask specific questions about race or age or demographics necessarily when we're doing the permitting, because it's an open platform and people are encouraged to do their own permits. We do back-end aspects to the permitting, but I would say I'll let Ms. Lopez Cuevas step in, because we do have grant programs that do capture information, because one of the conditions of the grant, qualifying for the grant, would be who you're serving and what that looks like.
Hi, Vanessa Lopez Cuevas, Community Use of Public Facilities. We do capture the data when someone goes on Active Montgomery right now, they set up an account and it does ask demographic information. They can decline to answer it, but a lot of times they do answer it. But if it's an organization, you don't really get all that information because we don't know who's really participating, but we do have how many participants are going to be in that event. So if it's a contract, say for like 7 months or 8 months or what have you, they do tell us how many participants at each date that they're going to be using the space or facility. And at the end of each fiscal year, we do determine how funding for the subsidy programs, like the Fee Facility Assistance Program, we determine how many individuals were assisted, the area, also how they do like a brief overview of how the subsidy affected and assisted them in their programs. So we do capture the data, but not, I would say it was just more broad range. We don't actively go out and get information on just facilities and permits that they're using on a day-to-day basis. But definitely we do capture that data for subsidy programs.
Yeah, I'd be interested to come back after budget and look at that in the context of Rec 2, because I was thinking about when you sign up, when I sign my kids up for something, it does ask for demographic data for the individuals signing up for offerings that are, many of which are used at county facilities. Mm-hmm. But I know I get your point. It's different if you're signing up for like a league or something, that you're not going to get that level unless it's through one of these programs. But I'd also be curious about, there's always this issue of folks using facilities that are based somewhere else. They're from another area or part of the county or even outside the county, and when they permit something or use something, where are they from and how far are they from it? And I just think there's a lot of equity things baked into that I think we need to understand better. And we'll come back, and we need rec for that. It wouldn't just be you all, but I think there could be a conversation that could hopefully be helpful and help us just to be better at that. Yes, go ahead.
And one of the things, when you mentioned the out-of-county and what it looks like and what the use looks like, that's one of the serious areas that our consultant for the fee study is looking at. Because, and I've had conversations with the county exec about the equity and the disparity where we have limited resources, and the last thing we want to do is be giving priorities or opportunities to out-of-county participants that we don't offer for in-county. So we are looking at that.
And you
Jumped ahead.
anticipated my question on the fee study. So when is what's the timing for that? I know it's later this summer, right? It's imminent.
It is.
Yeah.
We have a preliminary report now from them that was given to our ICB. That has spurred additional questions, and there's going to be a round-robin session with the ICB before they come up with their final report by end of June, mid to end of June. We anticipate requesting an audience with the council so that we can review and discuss that before the end of the summer. The idea being that it's been very educational to us because we've learned how we are the lowest charging entity in this area. Our neighbors are charging much more.
That. Yeah.
And that's why we have out-of-county people that want to come to us in large numbers sometimes. To the extent that we can get addresses and know where things are located, we do give priority to the county
But people know how
residents
to work a way around that.
Oh, they know how. Yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely do.
Yeah.
But to get back to your question, we will be concluding the end of June, and we will be coming forward with some information. We do have the consultant on board for a few months longer after that, so we would be able to come back to them if there's some tweaks that need to happen, if through the conversations and the discussions of what we've learned, we want to make some suggestions, new scenarios. They've already started creating scenarios for us, possible out-of-county fees being different for in-county residents, and just a lot of opportunities that we may have. We're also looking to see from an equity standpoint if there is anything we could make free that isn't currently free, because we have a lot of different types of usage, from libraries to fields to classrooms to government facilities, regional service buildings. So there are a lot of opportunities that we're hoping we're going to find from that.
Well, I'm excited to do that. I think, Ms. Yao, obviously, let's bookmark that for June before July 4th. I'd love to do that if we could. And take advantage of the consultant being still on board, because I'd love to have them participate in the session, since, whoever the people on the team that produce the report. And I don't know if that would just be us or if it would be PHP and us because of rec, but I'm happy to do it either way. But I think it could be just us, but we'll figure it out. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Ms. Bill Pearson. You have very much been in my thoughts. So just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
Yes. And I've said this before, I'll always say it when you're before us, I think you've got one of the toughest jobs in county government, because you have to control so many things that are completely out of your control, but you're still held responsible for. But you do a great job. I appreciate your team. I'm very intimately familiar with your work, and I know we've come a long way, and I appreciate it. So I guess when we do come back, and when I agree it's a good idea to come back, and we do get the analysis of the fees as compared to other jurisdiction, I think we'll have to be prepared to acknowledge, we've got this nonprofit, for-profit, but not all nonprofits are made the same. And so I think we're going to have to think more creatively about how to delineate those nonprofits, particularly the new and emerging, that are very much serving the populations that we are desperately trying to reach, and ensuring that they're held harmless as we discuss the fees and the possible increases of them. And there's a way of doing that. There's a lot of information at our disposal, but it will take a nuanced approach, and I'm confident we'll be able to get there. We've done it in other areas before. The other thing that I'll just acknowledge, this whole supply and demand issue. I know there's been a concerted effort by both the Parks Department as well as MCPS to improve the quality of fields across the board, which makes your jobs a little bit easier, and frankly brings in more revenue overall to the county. But I think that should be part of that conversation too, Chair Jawando, because we are continuing to look at how to raise all boats and look at creative solutions, things like adding lights to some fields, which can, significantly maximize use and is something we should be exploring. We've had conversations with the Parks Department about that, but you all should be brought into that conversation too. That's it for now, Mr. Chair. I will yield back to you.
Good points. Thank you. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate the conversation and appreciate your work. CUP has been very responsive and helpful when we've had constituent issues, and so we just really appreciate that and glad to continue the conversation. I agree this is a really important one. And also looking at, this is even more complicated, but also looking at the use of the communities that are centered right around the facilities versus versus from another part of the county. And this plugs in maybe a little bit more with parks, where I know that they're looking at their legacy use policy, but as part of that conversation, that is certainly relevant to folks in the East County who have had some struggles. Continue to. Thanks.
Appreciate you putting a fine point on that. Yes, and I would include that. I think it's not just out of county, it's side of county, it's the equities in all of the above. It's people in their community have a nice amenity, they should be able to access it and do so in an affordable way, and that's equitable, so that's, and I know we've had that conversation before. Ms. Yao, so I think without objection we'll approve the budget, but are there any other items we have to go through?
I
know you outlined several things in the packet. But.
Right. It's generally the same services budget. Yeah. It's supported by the enterprise fund that does not use tax-supported funds. So it just, the package shows just the reimbursements to MCPS and the revenue assumptions. But other than that, it really is just continuation of, the adjustments are to continue services as they are.
Yep. Well, with great appreciation, we're glad you're an enterprise fund, and hopefully with some of these changes, you'll be able to do even more for the community. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Singh?
Another point of clarification.
Sure.
There is a new request for a new position, so
yes.
Ms. Yao wanted to talk about that.
Why don't you, while you're looking in there, is it Ms. Bell Pearson, do you want to talk about the request for a new position?
Sure. We have noticed an increased usage of the Silver Spring Civic Building, which before the pandemic was averaging about $1 million a year. It was a shining star for us. It is now climbing back up to that million. It's like less than $100K from the million that we had before the pandemic.
All right.
However, the services we reduced in order to compensate for the lesser use, as well as the restrictions and the issues with COVID, caused us to reduce our policy, or to cause our policy to change to say that we can only sponsor or permit one event per day per room. And that has decreased our abilities to do a lot of permitting, because one bite and you've got the room for the day, or you don't have it for the day, but we
That's
can not
all you
only
can
permit it for one day. So, and we haven't been able to have people available to be at the front desk. We've had to rely on our security officer before we had a person there that could do wayfinding and help people.
I've noticed that. I was wondering what that change was from. Okay.
Yes, and we lost people during the pandemic that were part-time people. And then those positions went away because those positions were actually loaned to us from recreation as seasonal employees. So long story short, it's a perfect storm, and we have a situation where we don't have enough personnel. We have a full complement now based on the existing numbers that are allotted to us. However, we need to create a new position in order to cover that shortage at the Silver Spring Civic Building and create a situation where we can permit more than one event per day, and we can have someone at the front desk, and we can have more support and backup for our existing staff.
And so under the enterprise model, how does that work? Your mic is not on, Ms. Young. Thank you.
The position is $74,473, but it's supported through the enterprise fund, so it would not go on the new and enhanced budget list because, again, it's not using tax-supported dollars.
But still needs to be approved.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, and I'm glad you brought that up. I had noticed it being a little more quiet and it's particularly at a front desk issue. So great, yes. So without objection, I think we'll approve that as well.
And there's also the elimination of seasonal temp charges for $10,000. So it's a reduction 0.2 FTEs.
Okay, we like that reduction. Okay, so without objection, we'll approve all of those items. Any, Ms. Singh, did I miss anything else?
No, we're good.
Okay. Thank you all. Really appreciate your work. Look forward to seeing you in June with some exciting updates. And last thing I'll ask you is just this MCPS MOU.
Well, we've done our part. We had negotiations towards the end of last year. We got their responses back probably a couple months ago. We signed off with the county attorney signing off in mid-March, I think, and sent everything back. And we haven't heard anything from them yet. They haven't signed it. We did reach out to say, are there any questions? Are there any, and we haven't heard.
Okay, I'll bring it up. We have them before us a couple more times. I'll make sure to bring it up, see if we can give it a little nudge. But they've had a bit of transition, but glad to hear that your part is done, and hopefully we can get that signed here.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. With that, we are adjourned.